All right, let's go. I think it's cool there. Hello, Shoot the Defense. First show back in a couple of weeks. I've been away. I haven't really missed doing any podcasts, to be fair. It's one of those things. I don't enjoy it as much anymore. It's got nothing to do with United. Anyway, I'm your host, Stel. I've got two guests. Unfortunately, Rodri Giggs isn't here at the moment. He isn't licking his wounds. He's busy. He's got other things to do, which I don't blame him, to be honest. But Daniel is back, and as is Chig from Gooner Eagle Eye. Dan, how you doing, mate?
I've been better, man. I've been better.
Oh, this is how we're going to start, isn't it? This is start as you mean to go on. Fucking hell. That's all right. I feel your pain, mate. I feel your pain.
Yeah, sometimes you got to just stop pretending, innit?
Yeah. We're not in denial anymore, mate.
Yeah, there's no point. There's no point.
All right. I'll tell you what, let's ask Chig how he's doing. He's got a big grin on his face at the moment. So, have you had a big grin on your face all season, though, Chig?
No. In fact, the grin is very new because I was where you and Daniel were today as recently as last week when we played Leicester.
Wow.
That was what I thought today was going to turn into. But fortunately, actually saw it out today, which was a pleasant surprise. So I must admit, honestly, it's the game I hate the most.
Really? So, more than Spurs?
Oh, yeah. For me,
I think you're the only one that thought United were going to do something today.
I just know how far. I know what Arsenal are like. I know when it comes to going to Old Trafford, just a mental block seems to happen. So I was just expecting something to go wrong. And I didn't realise your PE teacher, I don't know what's going on with him, mate. Don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the best analogy I can give when it comes to that, Chig, is that when you go to a family wedding, there's going to be one uncle or an aunt that's going to embarrass themselves, isn't it? You just know it's going to happen.
Yes, very much so.
We all have one of those.
PE teacher makes him overqualified, to be honest, man. It's like the teaching assistant, the substitute
Today
teacher.
was the battle of the PE teacher versus the supply teacher.
Oh, man.
I just actually got it done.
Oh, jeez. All right.
That was like an observed lesson. That's what that was.
All right. Well, let's talk about that one. So Arsenal came to Old Trafford, walked away with the points. I say walked away. They strolled away with the points. And Dan, to be 100% honest with you, mate, I'm never confident going into these games. You can ask Chig because we've done numerous shows in the past and I've never actually tipped United to win. In fact, I think the only other time I've been confident that United were going to beat Arsenal was in the FA Cup when Sanchez scored. That was the one time I can remember in recent memory anyway. And today I saw United's lineup and the first thing I thought was, Jesus Christ, this manager has caved in to fan pressure again, hasn't he? He's gone with a diamond in midfield. And lo and behold, they put in a performance which we kind of expected. So I'm not going to ask you if you were surprised that United was so lackluster, but where did it actually go wrong? Apart from the penalty, where did it go wrong?
McTominay was playing.
Oof.
That was the start. That was when I knew it was the beginning of the end, man. That guy, I call him McMayonnaise, and there's a reason for it because he's all. I tweeted during the game that I don't think there's a player in the top 92 that marks midfielders when his team is in possession like he does. He's constantly playing peekaboo. He's always hiding behind opposition players instead of showing for the ball. And then our centre-backs go side to side to the fullback. The fullback goes back to the centre-back. We get pressed. We go long. We lose a second ball. And then we go back to 2 blocks of 4. It happens doesn't matter what the system we play is. Unless the team that we're playing against decides that they want to attack us, we have nothing. It doesn't matter who's on the pitch. It doesn't matter what formation we're playing. It doesn't matter what kind of form we're in. It's irrelevant. We're so bad. We lack a plan so badly. And I was saying to you before we started recording that people defending it is crazy to me because to me, and I'm sure to plenty, the anomaly is the midweek result, the 5-0 against Leipzig. Today is not an anomaly. Today is expected. We don't win these games. We don't win games that we're expected to win against teams that are organised. Leipzig came to Old Trafford and in a way they disrespected Solskjaer by playing a high line because anyone that plays a high line against us, we batter them because our players are good enough that with space, they punish you. But Arsenal don't do that. We all expected them to come and park the bus, and credit to them, they did because it works. I don't blame Arteta for doing it, because anyone that knows anything about football knows if they do that, they're gonna get the points. As soon as they lined up with 5 at the back and we went diamond, they were getting a point minimum.
Well,
So,
see, this is the problem with that diamond system, because granted, our fullbacks love to get forward, and as much as I don't want to slate Wan-Bissaka because I think he had a decent game, I think when it comes to tracking back, you can't expect him to bomb forward and track back every single time. He doesn't have that energy in him to do it for 90 minutes. And against an Arsenal side that, as you said, are very compact, they like to exploit the areas in behind, especially in the channels. And we just didn't have an answer to it. Granted, Pogba was drifting out left and McTominay was trying to do whatever he decided to do. Fred was giving the ball away left, right, and centre. But, you know, you've got to counter their system with a high press, which is what we did against Leipzig. But it's almost as if the players don't have the energy to do it.
Do you know what I noticed as well? And I'm obviously a big fan. I'm a season ticket holder for Marshall FC, right? But we missed him today, and I know people will say that he hasn't scored and whatnot, but just his presence in that team where he presses a certain way and his hold-up play is so much better than any other attacker we have that it makes such a difference. Van der Beek's ball retention in midfield was massively missed. Matic is just a better defensive midfielder than McTominay or Fred, so he should have probably been playing. And I don't have a problem with us playing the diamond because we were the home team. The onus is on us to attack. So I understand that. But I just think for the system he played, he picked the wrong team. And then he doesn't like to change the team or the system, because then it's like it comes across badly on him. So he kind of, it seems like he thinks about that. Whereas someone like, was it Bielsa, made a sub after like 20 minutes last week because it was wrong. It didn't work, so he made a sub after 20 minutes. And it's like, sometimes you just need to do it. Like Mourinho made 4 subs at half time during the week. And it's like, sometimes you need to just admit you got it wrong and switch it. We were at 71 minutes, we were 1-0 down, and he was still playing a diamond with Fred and McTominay in the middle. Pogba was awful today, and I'm a big Pogba fan, but he was terrible today.
Yeah.
He was in Partey's pocket. And like, it's just at some point you have to, like, we got it wrong, let's switch it, let's see what we can do. All the subs we made today were like for like. It didn't change anything. The only shot I remember us having was Greenwood in the first half, from Rashford's like long through ball that kind of wasn't really a chance, but Greenwood made it into a chance. But other than that, I don't remember Leno having anything to do.
Yeah. Well, look, before we move on to Arsenal, listen, I've never been. It's not fair for me to say I've never been an Ole fan. I've been an Ole fan, but I've never been a fan of the idea of him getting the job permanently. I don't think he's tactically aware. Rodri and I have been having this conversation for God knows how long. I've said he's inept, tactically inept. And today I'm going to add another one. He isn't brave enough. And by that, I mean, not just what you said about the substitutions, like you said about going like for like. He should have taken Pogba off. We knew he was having a bad game, but it's almost as if he's too scared to do that because of any backlash he may receive from the media or from anyone. And for me, that's not a Man United manager. You've got to make big decisions. And the big decision was there to be made, and he didn't do it.
Do you know what? I would agree with you normally, but the fact he took off Bruno, who the guy seems to play every minute of every game, to me, that kind of negates that fact, because Bruno was having as bad a game as Pogba, bar the penalty. Bruno was a turnover machine. Everything for Bruno seems to have to go forward, whether it's on or not. It has to go forward. And like I said earlier, the ball retention in the middle of the pitch, we were severely lacking. Considering we were outnumbering them 4-2 in the center of the pitch, considering we were diamond and they were playing 2 central midfielders, we got dominated in midfield. And Fred and Bruno were awful on the ball today. I think the fact he took off Bruno kind of takes away from the fact he didn't take off Pogba. But yeah, I agree that I would have taken off Pogba before I took off Bruno.
He could have taken off all 3 of them, though, Dan. He could have taken all 3 of them off.
I don't know. I think
up front.
Yeah, but I guess that comes back to the change in the system, even though we're losing, I guess. But I get what he was trying to do, because bar the penalty, we didn't concede any real. Like, they had the Saka header in the first half, and Aubameyang slid and missed the ball. But other than that, they didn't really create much either. It was a game. Really and truly, the game should have ended 0-0. But if anyone was going to win it, it was them. We didn't look a threat in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, agreed.
So,
all right, Chig, you didn't expect that. We did. But Dan hit the nail right on the head. I mean, you guys were tactically astute, tactically better. I think you wanted it more. You were more creative. You the ball retention was fantastic. You made use of the ball better than us, and I think you exploited our weaknesses. But going into this game, as we spoke before the show, you weren't too optimistic about it. I'm pretty sure that you're pleased with the result. Were you happy with the way that you guys played as well?
Yeah, largely. I thought we deserved to win. I always like doing shows like this away from Arsenal fans because it's always interesting hearing the sort of complaints that people have about their own team. Honestly, everything you've said, you can apply it to an Arsenal team. Arteta has this habit of when something's not going wrong, he has this habit of not making a sub early. It's one of the things that I think Emre was very capable of, and that we miss about Emre, the fact that Emre at halftime would often see that something's not going wrong and actually make that sub, make that change the system. When I saw 3 at the back today, I was in my mind, I was just like, oh, here we go. I knew we would play like that deep down because whenever we go away from home against the top 16, the plan is to stifle the midfield and try and counter-attack as best as we possibly can. I did say in my preview that against the United side that depends so much on the pace that they have up front and their midfield, well, their midfield I felt was still important to try and control. And fortunately, we were able to do that. Of all people, Mohamed El-Nene showed up and decided he's going to be a decent player today. And everything that you could say about McTominay, trust me, you could say about El-Nene. But what I realized about watching El-Nene today was, and this is going to sound like a really strange comment, but hopefully you and your listeners will understand what I mean. There are players who they step up to the level of the people that are playing around them. El-Nene is one of them sort of players where if you play him with the Granit Xhaka is not a runner. He's someone that likes to try and dominate the ball and try and influence the play from deep. So subsequently, El-Nene will be quite static. He'll barely run, and he'll just try and be an extra body for you on the pitch. Whereas today, we saw something different from him because Partey was on the pitch, and Partey completely dominated that midfield. He was everywhere. He put his foot everywhere. He was breaking up play. But actually, more importantly than that, he was starting play from deep. So El-Nene, it's almost like El-Nene was like, oh, that's the level I need to step up to. Let me match that energy. So he played a really good supporting role for Partey. And I think that in my mind, was the main reason why people like McTominay was so ineffective in the game. Pogba was struggling to Partey today. And I kind of agree with you. It was weird that, at some way part of the game, I kept saying to Lee, who I was watching the game with, like, at some point they're going to bring on Van der Beek for Pogba, surely. Like surely that's the move. And it just didn't happen until the 71st minute. And even then, it wasn't the sub that you expected it to be. But I felt that winning that midfield battle was key for us because as long as we did that, then we had half a chance. We managed to do that. You still always worry about the pace of your front three is just so quick, and they're so interchangeable. But once I realized that they were pretty ineffective, so much so that Cavani had to be thrown on, and then for some reason he played on the left, which confused me. It's like, what is he doing on the left of all places? So yeah, at that point I realized, okay, we're going to win this. And there was no point actually during the game where I thought we would lose. It's been a long time since I thought that about United game. So yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm always optimistically cautious when it comes to Arsenal, in that I try and not let it get carried away. For me, I hate United so much, I'm just happy we won the game. I'm taking it for the game itself. That we won the game and we move on. So.
Yeah, that's a fair comment to make, but I think it's interesting that you mentioned Thomas Partey because he was undoubtedly your man of the match, as you mentioned. He's cleaned everything up. His distribution was fantastic, and when you got a player like him in the middle of the park, it's almost as if the midfield partner El Neni in this on this occasion, shall I say, was like a spare man. Yeah. So that gave him the onus to get forward. Saka was getting forward, and again, when you've got a midfielder that can dominate that area of the pitch, it makes it very, very difficult for the opposition to overrun him as well because he's so comfortable on the ball. It isn't just his distribution going forward; it's his distribution playing it sideways or even backwards. Just the attention to detail is there.
For me, that's why he was so much more important to me to get in the Arsenal squad than say someone like an Aouar. Because yes, we do miss a creative force, and the ideal solution would have been to get both of them, but. For me, we've missed someone like Partey so much. He's just a presence in that midfield. Because like you say, it wasn't even just he was doing one thing over another. It was the fact that he was in there battling. The amount of times I've just wanted us just have one guy that just battles in the center of that midfield. And he's the perfect guy for that. Like I say, I think for me, Pogba was struggling to him all day.
I think with Partey as well, even if you look past his technical attributes and his physical attributes, his decision making, he doesn't play the risky pass if he doesn't need to. If the easy pass is a 5-yard sideways pass, he'll play it. But if he's part of your midfield, that if that 20-yard through ball between the lines is on, he'll play it. And that's the difference between someone like him and Bruno, for example. I know that obviously Partey is more defensive minded than Bruno, but one thing I noticed as a United fan with Bruno is, again, I said it earlier, it seems like everything has to go forward. It doesn't matter if the easy pass is next to him, he'll look for the 30-yard diagonal because Rashford's got 10 yards of space. And it's like, sometimes just keep the ball. You don't have to play that pass every time. And yes, more often than not currently with him, it seems to result in a goal or an assist or a penalty or a free kick or something, but that can only last for so long. And when you've got a team like Arsenal who are so compact and so organized, it's just a recipe for disaster. Who they're going to keep getting the ball back, and you can't do anything. I think Rashford and Greenwood probably touched the ball in Arsenal's half, maybe 5 times combined. They were nowhere near it, and that for me is the difference between a top talent and a top footballer, is that decision making. When you can trust them to make the right choice 9 times out of 10. Then they're going to be much more useful to you, regardless of their level of talent.
The thing is, Dan, when you play a diamond against Arsenal, it's almost as if you're playing in their hands. Because at the end of the day, they'll get that ball in the middle of the park and they'll release it. And when you've got someone like Kieran Tierney, for example, who is a left back, but he's playing left-sided central defender, he'll get forward as well. I think he was fantastic, in all fairness. Him and Partey are probably the 2 best players on the pitch.
Yeah, I think... giving us space is a disaster, and actually we've done well in recent times against someone like Chelsea because they've adopted the diamond shape. It's only very recently where I think it's kind of occurred to Frank Lampard, maybe we shouldn't give Arsenal's midfield so much time and space, especially someone like Granit Xhaka, who feels like I'm kicking him, but he's one that always sticks in my mind, whereby all you got to do is just put pressure on him. Put pressure on him and there'll be a misplaced pass somewhere. And I think with Arsenal, it's about almost matching their energy, particularly in that midfield. If you can do that, that's the key to beating Arsenal. And playing in a diamond formation where you're giving us space, you're giving us license to just be creative, to pass through you. And that's one thing you never want against an Arsenal team.
I think it also doesn't help when you consider Arsenal's probably best creative player was Saka, and he's playing in a wing-back role when we've got no winger. So he had the entire freedom of the pitch.
Yeah.
He gave Wan-Bissaka a tougher day than Neymar did, which says a lot. And that's not to say he's as good as Neymar, because obviously, but he gave Wan-Bissaka a nightmare. And
you say that, I thought Wan-Bissaka played excellent today.
No, he absolutely did. But I think especially in the first half, it's Saka and Partey were making everything happen for Arsenal.
Yeah.
So I think when you consider that we were much better in the second half when we quietened Saka down, and we weren't good in the second half, but we were better than the first half. And I think a lot of that comes from we managed to keep. We swapped McTominay and Fred, so Fred started as the right sided of the diamond, and in the second half he was on a booking, and in the second half he went to the deepest point of the diamond, and McTominay went to the right, and Saka was very quiet after that.
Yeah, he was. He wasn't nearly as effective as
everything started going through Partey and Willian in the second half, and the fact that we played a diamond where we then rely on a lot of creativity from our fullbacks, and our fullbacks are terrible going forward. It just, there wasn't a lot of foresight from Ollie, man. I feel like it's a bit like what I think said earlier. He kind of played into pressure of, we played well with a diamond midweek, do it again. And there was no real thought process behind it, I don't think. I would have matched Arsenal. I would have gone 3 at the back just to match them in the middle.
Yeah.
Just to match them in the middle. You then have Bruno, Rashford, and Greenwood up front, and you say, go and do your thing. You got, even if I wouldn't have played Fred and McTominay, but even if you did, you can say, right, it's you two against El Nene and Partey.
Yeah.
Partey's going to dominate that because he's comfortably the best midfielder on the pitch in that sense. But at least then you've also got the wing backs marking the wing backs. You've got 3 at the back against their 2 at the front. Same. It's literally then individual quality. And I think personally, and maybe I'm biased, but I think individually United are a better outfit than Arsenal.
Yeah.
Arsenal are just better coached.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'd say so. I would say United are definitely definitely have the better squad. I rate a lot of their players, especially Wan-Bissaka. I wish we had a right back like that personally. Yeah, I think you guys were just unfortunate. Don't get it twisted. I think we deserve to win, but I think in the end, I felt like based on the first half and the chances that we created, albeit none were on target, but the chances that we created and the fact that we constantly looked like for once we wanted this more than the other team. So that for me kind of put me at ease and thought, all right, I don't think we'll lose this game, especially the longer it carried on. So,
but you also won the physical aspect of it, Chig. I mean, when it came to set pieces, I'm looking at United's players, big players like Matic is tall, Pogba's tall, Cavani, and you were winning headers like that. Okay, granted, a couple of the balls in the box didn't beat the first man, which didn't help, but you were getting rid of them. So it wasn't as if, it was the Alamo. You weren't defending for your lives. And even the fact that, it's the attention to detail, right? At the end, Arteta's bringing on Mustafi. He's bringing on Maitland-Niles. He's making things more defensive, making things more compact. He's saying, well, you come at us because we're just going to stop everything because you've got no outlet.
Yeah. And like I said, I think that just could be just due to the fact that you guys were going through the motions. I hate to use the word, but maybe you guys were a bit fatigued from the Leipzig game, because seeing you guys winning 5-0 actually didn't scare me. It was more about the fact that, I know Ollie just seems to have this habit of getting results exactly when he needs it. And that's an impressive result against a decent European outfit. I mean, in my mind, I was thinking to myself, okay, so what sort of United will we see on Sunday? I actually predicted it would be 0-0. I never thought we would lose. But I thought for the simple reason that we have this psychological hump, I didn't think we'd win either. But I was always quietly confident going into the game that I didn't think we would lose. But I also felt that the midfield battle was key, and it turned out it was. And after winning that, we were able to win the game, albeit it was a soft penalty. But I think we earned that penalty.
Fair point. Very, very fair point. All right, let's move on. Shall we talk about Liverpool? They beat West Ham 2-1. Talking point was Salah going down easy again. I say again, I know Liverpool fans are going to get on my back, but that's what he does, isn't it? That's what he does. Dan, I know Van Dijk missing is a big loss for Liverpool, but it's almost as if, it's no big deal for him. It's another win, isn't it? They haven't lost a game since he's been out.
I wouldn't go that far. I think West Ham kind of played into their hands with, was it Phillips that played at the back? I've never seen him play before Saturday, but the big aerial balls and nothing in behind seemed to suit him. I think when they went 1-0 down, they never panicked. They have that thing about them where they know how they're going to play, and they believe in themselves and they believe in the quality they have in the squad. Salah went down easy, but it's a foul, man. Like I get, yes, he shouldn't go down that easy, but it would be a lot easier for them to not go down like that if referees gave the foul, regardless. Like, it's a foul. It doesn't. There's nothing in the rule book that says the contact has to make you go to the floor. A foul is a foul. You can't kick someone in the foot when you're trying to get the ball. So personally, I'm not mad that the decision was given. Obviously, it looks crap when you look at a replay. But there was an occasion I think it was last season, where I think it was against Bournemouth, maybe for United, where Rashford took a shot and was wiped out afterwards, and we didn't get the penalty. And it's a clear, if it was on the halfway line, we get a free kick, and it's not even a conversation. And I think those decisions need to be given more often, because it stops people falling to the ground for no reason. So you see it all the time now, where the slightest contact and they turn and they roll and it looks stupid, but they're still fouls. So if the referee starts giving a decision, even if the player's on his feet, it's still a foul, it's still a penalty. So I'm not mad at it. I think people have stopped doubting Jota now. I saw people doubting him when he first signed. I was pretty confident he was going to do an absolute madness for them, and he's proven me right, because he's just their profile of player. He's electric, he's efficient, he's happy to work, and he has quality. So I'm not surprised he's doing well. I think their big decision now isn't so much at the back, it's do they drop Firmino and bring Jota in full time? Because Firmino's been terrible now for at least 12 months.
You're going to have our Liverpool fans arguing with you, saying, well, it's what he does off the ball, you know?
I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that, because you've got players who can do what he does off the ball and produce on it. And he used to, I'll happily say it, especially the year they lost out to City for the title, he delivered off the ball, he was creating, and when he wasn't playing, Liverpool struggled. But now they seem to struggle more with him on the pitch. I think when he came off against West Ham and Jota came on, and I think it was Salah went through the middle, they looked a whole different kettle of fish. And it is scary, the options they have now. They've still got Thiago to come back.
Yeah.
Keita, who hasn't lit it up, but he's got more than enough quality for games like that. Henderson, Fabinho's got to come back, whether it's in defence or in midfield. They've got a lot of options now, and they're winning games in this period where they're in trouble. So when they start to come out of this period, I can't see how they start losing games, which is a worry.
But have you seen anything different in terms of their playing style now that Van Dijk has been out injured? Because we saw the Champions League game against Ajax, and again, it's almost as if they were going through the motions. They won again midweek, but domestically, have you seen anything different?
Not really. They're still playing a crazy high line. I think Henderson now being in that holding role, he's going to have more discipline with Fabinho behind him. They've got a bit more ability on the ball to play out from the back than when it's just one of them. But they've also now got space for an extra runner alongside, because normally you have Fabinho holding with Henderson and then either Thiago or Wijnaldum. Now you can have all four. And I think that will help to make up for the lack of Van Dijk, because they'll press a bit higher. They'll win it back a bit earlier to avoid it getting to that back four. I don't think it's a coincidence that Robertson wasn't pushing on as much against West Ham. I think Trent was a lot higher as usual, but I think Robertson was a bit more reserved, maybe until the last 20, 25 minutes when it was 1-1 and they were chasing. But generally, he wasn't pushing up as much. He wasn't getting to the byline like he normally would. He was still crossing the ball, was still involved, but I don't think he was pushing as much as he normally would when he's got Van Dijk next to him. So slight changes, but nothing that's like really noticeable. I think that they're going to stick to their way of playing, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I think that's just the way Klopp is.
Yeah, and they've got City next week, which will be a tasty one. Yeah. Chig, let's talk about Chelsea quickly, mate, because apparently going to Burnley it's difficult to go there and win and get results, but it didn't seem like that for Chelsea. I know Timo Werner got on the score sheet, Ziyech scored, as did, who else got Chelsea's goal? Again, now it's Kurt Zouma. How can I forget Kurt Zouma scoring a goal? this is a strange one for me because I've never been Lampard's biggest fan. I still stick to the fact that he did remarkably well last season to get to where they did, given the lack of resources that he had. Now he's been given a war chest and he's brought in X amount of players. He's brought in a new goalkeeper who's obviously made the difference. Was it another clean sheet for him? Edouard Mendy, I think it was at 4 or 5 now he's had. I can't remember. But they're not
5
leaking
in
goals.
a row now. Yeah.
5 in a row. There you go. So they're not conceding goals. I think they had their best first choice back 4 on display at the weekend. But can we read too much into this result given how bad Burnley have been this season?
Yeah, I was going to say, who said it wasn't easy or wasn't hard to go to Burnley? They're bottom of the league for a reason. And the way they're playing, I think they could get relegated.
Oh, don't say that. Rod will get on your back when he listens back to
Rod,
this because, Sean
Dyche. I think it could happen. No, I think there was always going to be a lot of expectation with Chelsea because of not only the amount of people who they bought, but who they bought in. And as many sensible football fans know, you can bring in whoever you want. These lot still have to click on the pitch. And I think, and I'm guilty of this sometimes as well. Sometimes, as an Arsenal fan, you just wish for anything. So when you see another club that brings in everybody, you're just like, oh gosh, imagine Chelsea next season. Forgetting that actually, are they buying sensibly? Are they buying the people that they need to buy in key positions? For me, one of the very first people they should have bought was a goalkeeper. I'm amazed they didn't come in for Martinez, who's ended up at Villa. I'm amazed that they allowed him to go to Villa instead of, because for me, the keeper was one of the first things that they needed to improve, followed by the central defence and the rest of their defence. I think what I do think will be interesting is seeing how much time Roman then gives Lampard after all this investment. Prior to this, we were hearing rumours that they were super, super close. But Roman has fired super, super people that are close to him as well. Jose's fired twice. Di Matteo won the Champions League for him. He fired, no problem. So I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that unless Lampard finishes in the top 3, I would suggest that Roman might think, "I'll forget this guy."
Yeah, but surely with the amount of money that they spent and the players that they brought in, top 3 shouldn't be the target. It should be the title, no?
It should be the title. It should be the title. But I guess it all depends on how much time you want to give these managers now. Because I don't know about you guys, but I know that all the kind of singing and dancing type of messages from our board is that, we're going to back Mikel, we're going to give him as much time as possible. And that seems to be the route if you employ a young manager. And that seems to be the kind of, I know a couple of Chelsea friends, a couple of Chelsea guys who are friends. They completely disagree. One of them wants Lampard out. They feel like there are better options for managers out there now. That even Poch would do a better job with that Chelsea team. And they want him out now. And then there's another one who just thinks that, he'll get it. To me, it was always obvious that Lampard went there too early. No, let's just be real here. He bottled the Derby situation. And that was supposedly his audition for the Chelsea job. And then they just rushed him in for the Chelsea job. And in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, the person that's doing it right is Steven Gerrard, who's learning his trade, he's learning his craft, he's taking his time at Rangers. I'm still not convinced he'll be the one to take over from Klopp. I think he will move on to another club before he starts really campaigning for a Liverpool job. And I think getting that experience is really important, especially when you look at Arsenal's situation or even United's situation, where clearly you see 2 guys that are more or less learning on the job. And Lampard is doing that at a very highly exposed level, in the sense that there's a lot of investment's been given into him. Now all eyes on him are to make it work. And I just don't see it I don't see it ending in anything but tears, to be honest. I've always thought that as well.
Do you know what? It's interesting with the 3 examples you just used with Gerrard, Arteta, and Oli. they're all in very similar situations, but I feel like, and Lampard as well. Sorry, that they're all in different situations, but they're all being treated differently in this by their clubs. So Gerrard he's obviously come in. He's up against Celtic, who are years ahead of them in terms of progress, but he's now competing because he's been backed and he's taken a job that's in his realm.
Yes.
In the sense of he's at a place where he's expected to win, but also not expected to win at the same time.
Yeah, not expected to win immediately.
Yeah, he's expected to challenge and he's expected to compete, which he did last year, and now he's progressed. I think Lampard is in a position where he's expected to compete, but obviously last year he had the transfer ban and they lost Hazard. So I think he's been given the benefit of the doubt, and now he's been backed heavily. Arteta obviously came in mid-season and he's been backed pretty, I wouldn't say heavily, but he's been backed sufficiently in the summer. He's got a lot of his targets. He didn't get rid of players he wanted to get rid of. They got a big squad, but generally he's being given time. And then you've got Ollie, who's further along in the process because he's been there for nearly 2 years now.
To be fair, the best experience of the four.
Yeah, and he's the one with the previous experience in terms of he had the Cardiff job and he worked at Mulder before, and he was even at United's reserve team for a few years prior to that. And people will say he's been backed, but he didn't get any of his number one targets, and he's not really progressing on the pitch as much, but he's still being backed. So it's interesting that all four of them are on a similar path, but they're all being dealt with differently by their club.
Who do you think will be the first to lose their role out of the four?
I hope it's Ollie.
Oh, you hope it's Ollie?
Genuinely, I think Gerrard will lose it first because he'll go elsewhere, not because he's
sacked.
Not because he's. I think a Premier League team will come in for him this year. I wouldn't be shocked if someone like, something like a West Ham or one of those mid-table clubs. They get rid of someone in January, February, and they try their luck with him. I wouldn't be shocked. And like you said, that would be the stepping stone for him between Rangers and Liverpool.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. Whether he takes it or not is a different case, because right now they look like they're going to win the league.
I think he'll make that move. It's just seeing how quickly, like Brendan Rodgers went from Celtic, who were winning everything, to Leicester. Like you didn't even want to wait until the season finished. You just wanted to go.
Yeah,
and that kind of made me
a triple treble, wasn't he?
Yeah, that kind of made me think to myself, okay, but maybe it's not as prestigious as one would think. You know, just being that.
I think with Gerrard especially as well, I think it's pretty common knowledge that his goal is Liverpool, isn't it?
Yes.
That's where he wants to end up. So if I'm sure he still knows people in the club, whether it's players, staff, chairman, board, whatever. And I'm sure he knows the situation. I'm sure he's had informal conversations of this is our plan. Yeah, I'm sure they know what his plans are, and he knows their plans. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's been told, look, we need you to prove something first, because especially for where they are now. Because if it was a few years ago and they were still fourth and fifth, bringing him in like Chelsea did wouldn't look so bad. But if they go from European and league champions to bringing him in and he flops and they end up fifth and sixth, it looks a lot worse.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't be surprised.
His career suffers as a result of it.
Exactly. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's the first one to lose the job that he's in, but I think it will be for a totally different reason than the others were to lose their job.
Yeah. Well, look, let's be honest. Rangers' performance in the Europa League this season have been outstanding. And don't forget, he's been able to bring in some pretty decent names as well. They brought in Haji, who, you know, obviously his dad was a bigger name than him, but he's performing well. He brought Kemar Roof from Anderlecht, who's, you know, on fire. Jermaine Defoe, again, another player who's a big name. So obviously
Morelos as well, didn't he?
Morelos, yeah, who's firing all cylinders. So yeah, you know, it's a very good project he's working on at Glasgow Rangers, and I think, look, I'm not one of these people that's going to turn around and say, oh, well, you know, if he comes to the Premier League, he's going to smash it straight away. But you could tell that he's got a set style of play and he's very comfortable playing a specific system. And he's not afraid to make changes either or be brave. There you go. You know, whereas perhaps Ollie hasn't got that in him. I don't think Lampard has that in him. Arteta, we've seen making big decisions like freezing out Guendouzi and Mesut Ozil. But in terms of a tactical perspective, I still think Gerrard is probably the bravest out of the four. Sorry.
Tactically, For all of Arteta's bravery off the field, I don't think tactically we've seen anything that reinvents the wheel with him, which is probably Arsenal fans' biggest gripe. And that's probably what will be on doing in the end.
Is that because Wenger was probably the first man to do that at Arsenal?
Yeah, and I think he's whether he wants to admit it or not, as much as he may have learnt off Pep, he was very much schooled by Wenger. Wenger took him under his wing the last 2 years of his playing time and almost groomed him for the role he has now. So it was always inevitable in some ways that he was going to become Arsenal manager. But I'd at least hoped, from a personal perspective, that he would have had a level of practical experience. And that's my biggest gripe with him. I have nothing personal against him. It's just we're seeing a geezer learning on the job. And why are we giving a guy who's not had that level of experience that I would expect an Arsenal manager to have? Why is he learning on the job, managing us? I think today was a good result, but I'm certainly not going to get gassed by him. I'm just at the point where I'm just like, all right, let's just see what happens in the next game. Because Villa's a stupid game, we'd go on and lose.
I think with Arteta, one thing Arsenal fans can take is there's clear progress. Whether it's progress that is attractive to the eye or not, but I think I read today that they've conceded the least goals in the league, which for them, when you consider Arsenal in the last few years, they're open at the back, but they score goals. And now they've kind of flipped it. They don't score enough goals, but if you don't concede, you don't lose games. And I feel like that's kind of what he's trying to do. And then he's going to try and push into the let's now start scoring goals as well as not conceding. But
We're
I think
definitely harder to beat.
For sure. I think anyone that goes to Arsenal or when Arsenal go elsewhere, that unless you put in a proper performance, you're not getting a result. And that's something they've lacked for a few years now, especially under Emery. They lacked it. You could even say the last year and a half, 2 years under Wenger, they lacked
Of course,
it.
yeah.
So he's brought that back for them, which is something they struggled with. But now he needs to get back the bit from before that where they were scoring goals and entertaining fans as well. I think that's what will get him the fans on side. But that's why you're hearing things like that he's going to get all the time in the world from the board, because there is progress there. There's clear progress there. They're a much better side now than they were a year ago. And I don't think that anyone can really deny that.
Yeah. I think one of Arteta's first steps was actually to make Arsenal more difficult to beat, which is what he's doing. And I know it's going to be to the detriment of the likes of Aubameyang. I think Aubameyang's got 2 league goals this season, hasn't he? Something like that. So that's obviously so there you go. So obviously the system has hampered Aubameyang. It's hampered Lacazette because we're seeing Lacazette drop deep. But I think first and foremost, it's about being difficult to beat, which is what they're doing at the moment anyway, difficult to break down. And then the results will come after that. So, yeah, let's see what happens. But, gents, the next game I want to talk about is related to 2 very experienced head coaches, but 2 different contrasting abilities and fortunes. And that's Newcastle beating Everton 2-1. You got Steve Bruce, who has managed numerous clubs with very little success in terms of trophies, and you got Ancelotti that's won everything there is to win. But Newcastle got the victory. 2 goals from Callum Wilson. I know Everton were without James Rodriguez and Richarlison, but they made a big gamble, dropping Jordan Pickford. And Daniel, we spoke about Pickford last time you were on. Brave decision, I think, from Ancelotti, given the circumstances. But when you go with Sigurdsson and who did they have in behind? What's his name? Calvert-Lewin. They had Andre Gomez, didn't they? Yeah. As like a number 10. Was that a bit of a gamble as well?
I think he had a bit of a weird one pre-game, didn't he? Because he said he's not playing Pickford, but Pickford's definitely going to play next week. So that's a bit of a weird one straight away. Like he's dropped him, but he hasn't dropped him because he's guaranteed him a place next week, no matter what happens. So I don't know really what's happened there, but they were missing both fullbacks as well. Digne and Coleman were both out, and then they're missing both their wide players. So they were missing a lot, considering how much they play down the wings for Calvert-Lewin. They were missing a big chunk of their team.
He still scored though, didn't he?
I don't know what's wrong with him. He's on something. You got to test him or something because he can't stop scoring.
He's
right
got
now.
the vaccine for
What's
COVID.
that?
That's what it is.
Is that 9 goals this season in the league in 6
Something
games
like that,
or
yeah.
8 goals or something? He's on fire. But I think Newcastle they did what they always do. They stayed solid. They were compact, and then they got a lucky penalty. It was a bit of a soft one. That was worse than Salah's one. No one's going to talk about it because it's Newcastle. But that was worse than the Salah penalty. And then I didn't see the second goal, but I was on my way out to watch the United game. But I think that was the typical Newcastle Steve Bruce performance. Is stay compact, don't concede. A bit like what we said with Arteta, don't concede, make sure you don't lose the game, and then they took their chances. But that's why they brought Wilson in, is to do things like that, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. And Chig, on the subject of Newcastle, they're 11th in the table. They're doing better than Leeds. They're doing better than Man United. A lot of people were tipping them to go down this season, but it's almost as if Steve Bruce is just here to prove them wrong, isn't he?
Yeah, he's just getting them to do the bare minimum, and he's working. And I think, as you mentioned, key to that was signing Callum Wilson. I think that kid is so good. And fair play to him, because it would have been easy to go to Newcastle, start well, down tools, and just kind of go through the motions. But at the moment, he's doing so well. I'm thinking about putting him in a fantasy football league.
Don't, because you'll stop scoring.
I know, right? I know people talk about Calvert-Lewin, but Wilson is quietly doing his thing, going about his business. I mean, I don't see there being much higher than that. That club is just desperate to just get sold, get a new manager in, refresh the whole thing. But I mean, talking about supply teachers, he is the ultimate supply teacher.
Really. He's the one that's been to like 15 different schools in the borough, isn't he?
Yeah.
Everyone knows him.
Just a good one. You know, everyone remembers that one good supply teacher they had. He just happens to be a good one.
The streamer I was watching earlier said something about Bruce and Ancelotti. They've managed over 20 clubs between them. I'm sure at least 16 of them are Bruce. he manages everyone, I think.
Oh man.
But it's like when you get to the age of 17, 18, where you start going to pubs younger, if you're someone else, and then you see your supply teacher from school, you're like, oh my god, it's Mr. So-and-so. It's like Steve Bruce, isn't it? You see him in the corridor, you see him, on the train. Oh my god, do you remember when you used to teach me? That's Steve Bruce.
Yeah. Plus, he's also on that kind of magical merry-go-round of managers where no matter what they do, they just end up with a job. You know, that kind of Alan Pardew.
Him and Allardyce.
Allardyce, Mark Hughes, all of them lot. No matter what they do, they will end up with a job somehow.
Nick McCarthy.
But fair play.
Hasn't he just gone to a Greek club?
He's gone to Cyprus. He's gone to Upwell.
Yeah, I saw that.
I could tell you a story about that. You're going to laugh your bloody heads off. But Karen, I'll tell you the Upwell story afterwards. Go on.
Yeah, I think Bruce is just one of those ones who, like you said, he just ends up in the job, and you know what you're getting with him. He's going to be compact at the back, and he's going to build a team that's good enough to stay up, but not much else. And you're not going to get an easy day going there, and they're not going to make it easy to get points at home against them. But other than that, they're not going to challenge for anything. They're going to be in and around the relegation places until March or April, and then they'll play the last 6-7 games for nothing. It's just kind of rinse and repeat, I think.
Yeah. So what's the difference between that and Ralph Hasenhüttl? I know they got a good win against Aston Villa today. I think they were 4-1 up with 10 minutes ago, and then Villa scored twice. But Chig, Hasenhüttl is a bit of an enigma for me, because on the one hand, he came with a big reputation from the Bundesliga, and he turned Southampton around, and then he had a bad patch last season, and then he turned them around again, and the season started off bad, and they turned him around again. What is it? What can they do with this guy? What can he do with this squad? Because, they're winning games here and there, then they go on a rough patch, and then they turn it around again. It's almost as if it's like a roller coaster, isn't it?
Yeah, I think something significant will happen at Southampton, whether it's a negative way or positive way at some point, because, like you say, it just seems to be a club that treads water to a certain extent, and not that they are so low that they'll eventually go down, but I think it's just one of those clubs where almost like a Burnley last season, where it's just kind of like, all right, you notice that they're there, and every now and again they'll pick up a decent result because they've got quietly decent players. When you think about Ings being there, I'll tell you what, I would have taken him at Arsenal at the start of the season. I quite like Danny Ings.
Ings is better than Firmino. Just saying that.
But is he better than Lacazette, Chig?
He is better than Lacazette. I'm just putting that out there. But
I seem to remember that podcast we did a while back when Lukaku joined United and Morata joined Chelsea, and we're like, well, which team's got the better end of the deal? And it's almost as if United were the ones that won that one. You look at it now.
Oh dear. No, but
remind me.
I think he'll probably be one of those types. Do you know what? He'll be like a Ronald Koeman type, where he ends up leaving the club, finds himself at a big club, and then have that opportunity to prove himself. Because like you said, I remember that guy being touted as the next Klopp. I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden, I think it was a couple of games later, he then lost like 9-0. And I'm like, new Klopp, all right. But then fair play, he stuck. They didn't sack him. He stuck around. They kind of bought well since. I found it interesting that they got Theo back on loan. Well, gosh, you guys are better than that. And, I think they're just treading water. I think one thing or another will happen. Either he'll leave the club for a big, big club, or they'll get relegated and he'll leave the club anyway. Just one of those sort of things that will happen.
I feel very differently. I can't lie. I think he's the best thing that's happened to them in a while. I think the way he sets them up, he's given them a clear identity, a clear philosophy, but he's also able to adapt when needs be. So, for example, like you see them against the big teams where they open up and they get thumped, and then the next game he will intentionally be a little bit more clued up, a little bit more static to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then as they grow with confidence, they play more expansive football. I think he's a bit unfortunate in the sense that he doesn't have the best players. And I would be very shocked if any top club took him on, just because Southampton are so up and down. But I think as a coach, he's brilliant. I think there's the young winger they just brought in, Gineppo, I think that's his name.
Yeah.
He looks unbelievable. He reminds me of Mane at Southampton. He's just so electric and unpredictable. But he gives players like that a platform to perform. It's not a coincidence that Højbjerg got a move to Spurs off the back of his Southampton form. Even though Spurs or Southampton struggled, he was quite clearly the standout player. I think.
I guess the question to you is because Southampton they're known as a selling club. So it's almost like every single time they'll seemingly make progress, you'll think that they'll sell one of these sort of star or players that they will turn and make into a decent player. And I guess, will that stunt the progress of the team so much that eventually it'll just be sat there thinking, oh, okay, we look for other opportunities that might be out there. That's the problem. So. That's the thought process I always have when it comes to.
But you know what?
I don't think so.
I agree to some extent, but the thing is, when you've got a head coach that can constantly develop players, he will always be on the radar of other teams. Because I mean, look at, for example, Ward-Prowse. Right, scored twice today, didn't he? He scored twice a day, and he's looking like a decent, in fact, an excellent central midfielder. And he's shining. You got Romeu, who came in from the cold. You got, as you mentioned, Theo Walcott. He's starting to find form. Danny Ings, Shea Adams brought him in from Birmingham. You got Vestergaard. So, and the right back, Carl Walker-Peters.
Carl Walker-Peters, yeah.
And they're all looking like solid footballers. So. In his mind, he's thinking, okay, fair enough. I can develop them. Eventually, they'll be sold, but that makes me look good because I'm the one that's developed them. So short window for me.
That he ends up going.
Well, look at Pochettino. How do you think he got the Spurs job?
Yeah, exactly. I think with Hasenhüttl, I think he knows what he signed up for. I think he knows that is Southampton's model: is to you bring in young players, you develop them, you build a decent team, you put a little challenge together, then the squad gets broken up and you start again. And I think he's probably accepted that. I think the highest he'll go is another club like that, probably something like Leipzig, if Nagelsmann was to leave, because that's the same kind of profile of club where they're very big on data and bringing in young talent that they can develop and push on. They sell for a big profit and they go again. And there's no real pressure on winning competitions, but more about performance and competing to your own ability. And I think he does that really well. Southampton. When they got battered 9-0, I think everybody kind of expected that to be the end. So the fact that they stuck by him, and then he turned it around. I think after that game, they had third most points in the league after City and Liverpool.
But no one's expecting them to finish fourth, right?
But this is it. I think no one's expecting to finish in the top six. If they were to finish 8th or 9th, I think most Southampton fans would be quite happy with that. So it's about, especially with the squad they have, a 9th place finished with, when you got Che Adams as your starting centre forward. I don't think anybody's going to say that they've underperformed. When they play the big teams, they tend to compete. They beat the smaller teams. It's the teams in and around them, like the West Hams and the Evertons and the Newcastles, where they struggle. And sometimes they get battered. But then sometimes, like today against Villa, they thumped them for 70 minutes. And then they probably coasted a little bit and ended up.
Yeah, I thought today was a good result for them.
Yeah, they were 3-0 up at half time, 4-0 up after less than an hour. Like they were coasting. They thumped them. And they have that in them. And they can do that against anyone. We saw it against United last season, after the lockdown. They were all over United. I think it ended up being a draw, I think.
When the last minute,
they battered us for 2/3 of that game.
Southampton have always been a bit of a purgative for Arsenal. So
this is it. They seem to do that against all the big teams. I don't think it's one bogey. They're just one of those teams that nobody wants to play against if you're having a bad day. So I think
Christ, he brings on Shane Long and he becomes a nuisance. Shane Long.
Yeah, this is it.
I hate seeing Shane Long come on against us because I just know he'll either get some sort of jammy goal or he'll do some kind of weird assist where he runs with the ball. I'm like, oh gosh, why are we letting Shane Long look like Usain Bolt against us? Why?
One goal every 38 games and it's always the same team.
We love you long time.
I think the main thing with Hasenhüttl is, for me, a manager, especially at that kind of club, the main thing for a manager is to get the maximum out of the squad you have. It's not necessarily about bringing in players or creating a system around a star player. It's about the 20 players you've got, what's the best you can do for all 20 of them. And he does that really well for them. He gets them. He had Danny Ings chasing a golden boot. He's got Ward-Prowse. He's got double the amount of goals under Hasenhüttl than he did in the 200 games before Hasenhüttl came. Højbjerg's got a big move to a top team. He's got Alex McCarthy playing well in goal. Like, that's a miracle in itself. So he's getting the most out of the squad he has. And as a manager, I don't think you can ask for more than that.
Do you think it's a bit of a concern that Southampton haven't been able to bring players in from the academy like they used to? Because we've seen, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Gareth Bale, etc., etc. I can't remember seeing that many debutants. I don't know. Okay, do you remember?
Is there anyone that stands out from their academy?
Well, I don't know. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't. I think back then that everyone kind of knew those players were coming through.
Yeah.
So I can't. There's no one stand out that I can think off the top of my head where it's he's in the Southampton academy, he's going to be a star.
I know, speaking from personal experience, Arsenal have a habit of watching their academy very closely, and they poach these players as young as possible. That's why I think there is a FIFA change or rule coming in that will prevent us from doing that in future. But I know that Arsenal, and I know, was it Liverpool or someone else that really closely monitor the kind of talent that comes out of that?
Yeah, Liverpool did it with West Brom as well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. But I think like I said, it's a bit like Tottenham. Like, people talk about Tottenham don't bring through academy products really, but they don't really have any standout academy products that you expect to make it that don't. So I think using it as a stick to beat them with is a bit harsh. In a way, Arsenal are more at fault with that. Someone like Emil Smith-Rowe or the young striker, what's his name, Balogun?
Yeah.
Like, those guys, you look at them playing under 23s football and you think they can make a difference in the first team, or they should at least be getting a chance, and then they don't.
Yeah, I do think we have mixed results this is another gripe I have with Arteta, because I don't think he particularly uses our youngsters that well. I think he prefers tried and tested over young talent, which I know sounds weird because Saka's played a lot. Saka's literally the only one. He just has this habit of being really weird when it comes to younger players. But we do have people like Joe Willock, who has shown some decent promise over the last couple of years. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, of course, who's still only 23, but he's shown over the last 3-4 years how pivotal he can be as a player. And we do have players like that can knock on. But you're right. Balogun, for example, only made his debut against Dundalk literally over the past on Thursday, and he looked good. He looked sharp. He looked great. The hope is that he will sign a new contract because his deal comes to an end at the end of the year, and they think that Arsenal are starting to play him now because they seem to have come to an understanding about a new deal, which I'm praying, because I think Balogun will be so good. Emile Smith-Rowe is a more interesting one because when he goes out on loan and he actually plays, he's very, very good. My worry is his injury record is terrible. Like I do have some Jack Wilshere type fears for him, the amount of injuries he does tend to get. So, but I don't know. Only time will tell with those guys.
Yeah, I think just in general though, when you talk about the Southampton Academy, which is what we were on about, is I just don't think they have any budding prospects coming through right now that are competing for a spot in the squad. I don't think Hasenhüttl personally would have a problem using them. I think he played a young, was it Valerie? Did he bring him through the academy?
The fullback.
Or was
did
he
he come
a
from
young
France,
signing?
though? I think
Did he come from France? But he was a kid, wasn't he? He was like 18 or 19.
Yeah.
So I don't think he has a problem with young players. I think it's just Southampton don't have anyone ready to come through yet, I think. I might be wrong, though. You'd have to ask a Southampton fan.
Fair enough. I know one. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I'll get in touch with him eventually. He hasn't changed his number or blocked me on WhatsApp. Right. Which game? Oh, God. They won today, didn't they, Spurs? And Gareth Bale got the winner. I didn't even watch the game, but I was checking on Twitter and someone put out a tweet. He was born to play for Spurs or Southampton or Real Madrid. Fuck knows. But yeah, Spurs win 2-1. Harry Kane scored the penalty. Tariq Lamptey scored. There you go, your guy, Daniel. But yeah, so again, with Tottenham, it's almost as if, what's that book? The little train that almost could or thought that could or whatever it called. Have you heard that one before? You know which one I'm talking about, don't you? I don't know the actual name of it, but you know which one I'm talking about. Because they brought in Jose Mourinho, and, you know, I've always been a Jose fan. I've waxed lyrical about him for years. And when Spurs got there, man, I thought, wow, he's going to turn it around. And then lo and behold, they got a whole heap of injuries. Their form dipped. They just about scraped into Europa League. And then this summer, they've been back. They've brought in Bale. They've won the transfer window, whatever the fuck that means. And they've stuttered a little bit. But today they got a very important victory, I believe anyway, against Brighton. Chig, I know you're not a Spurs fan. I know you can't stand them. Can you say anything positive about them at the moment?
Oh no, I can. No, putting my hatred for them aside. To be honest with you, I slightly disagree with you. I don't think they've started. I think they're doing fine. I think they are quietly going about their business, which you can't always say for Jose teams. Yes, Europe might be slightly different, but I think for them, their priority is winning a domestic trophy and trying to finish as high as possible in the league. Now, if that includes Europe, great, but I don't see Spurs winning a Europa League anytime soon, in my personal opinion. Yes, I get it. They were recently Champions League finalists, but let's not put that juju out there, please. But no, they're going about their business fine. They're second in the league. They are they are worrying me about actually how consistent they are being. You know, for me, they have the best strike duo in the league. If I want to call Song that, in terms of Song and Kane, they seem to be telepathic, which I flipping hate. But other than that, I think, in all honesty, I think for Spurs, it's always the key for them is always injuries, and the irony that they're relying on someone in Gareth Bale who is designed for injuries. to bail them out. Sorry to pardon the pun, in case Harry Kane ever gets injured, which seems to be his role. Because I can't see Bale at 30 years old with the injuries that he's had having a massively starring role. I see him being a guy who is backup to the main star, which is Harry Kane, as it should be, to be fair. And I think they're managing that situation well. I rate their left back so highly. He was linked with Arsenal for a long time. And then Spurs and Arsenal tend to nick each other's targets. So when that happened, I kind of figured, okay, I could see why you've done that, because I know Arsenal would have never agreed to a buyback clause for Real Madrid. And yeah, I just think, all they need to do is just keep going about their business quietly. And who knows, they might win the league. No, that's not what happened. But anyway, they might
Don't be cruel.
The pain in his voice when he said that.
They might win.
The pain in his voice.
They might finish highly. But no, we'll see.
Yeah, you know what? It's like when your mother-in-law says something and you mutter something under your breath that you don't want her to hear. You fucking.
You don't even sound right though. Even as a joke, it don't sound right. Spurs winning the league. Never.
Well, like a dog meowing or a cat barking, right?
But no, I'll tell you what though. In all seriousness, one thing that has changed my view on Spurs, particularly on the manager, is that that Amazon Prime documentary about them. I watched that. And my entire perspective of Jose changed. I was like, you know what? Damn it, I actually like him. Like, I see what he's about now. Like, I have a better understanding of what he's about. And fair play. Listen, as much as I can't stand Spurs, and as much as it would be a nightmare if they actually won something, they've got a team now that is worthy of really pushing for a trophy. So let's see where it goes.
Dan, I know judging by that Portuguese flag, I knew this already, but you're a Portuguese guy, and Jose always wins trophies, doesn't he? Wherever he goes, fact, he wins trophies. And again, I'll hold my hands up and say at the back end of the last season, I kind of thought, has he kind of lost it? I thought it was a busted flush. But when I look at the players that he's brought in, when I look at the style of football that they're playing, the way that they're attacking teams, destroying teams like they did with United, and today grinding out a victory, I'm a little bit disappointed with their European adventure so far, because losing to Antwerp shouldn't have happened. But I still think he'll win something, I suppose. Do you?
Yep, 100%. I think when you look at Jose, what he wants, if you gave Jose a pen and paper and you told him to pick a squad, that squad would be full of 25 and upwards players who are willing, who are versatile and adaptable and are willing to do whatever he says. And at Spurs, that's pretty much what he has. He didn't last season, and I think the players that he had have come round to him. I think when you look at the change in Ndombele especially, that talent-wise, he's top 3 centre midfielders in the league, and he's finally doing it now for Spurs. And he's the fact that Jose said after Thursday's loss that the team missed him shows how far he's come in the 6-month period. And then you've got players like Ben Davies, who they're constant 7 out of 10s, so he doesn't have to worry about a Ben Davies. He's brought in Doherty over Aurier, who's a similar player but a little bit more reliable. I think in that documentary that Chris was talking about, that he called Aurier out at one point, that he's going to give away a stupid penalty. So things like that, he's open. I think that documentary, to me, it didn't change anything for me. It kind of cemented what I kind of thought already, is he's open and honest, and he's happy to piss someone off if it gets him what he needs and wants.
He hasn't really put too much trust in Dele Alli, has he, mate?
But what's Dele Alli done to earn it? This is the question. Is when Dele was under Poch, he was playing well, and then he had a big dip under Poch, and I think people remembered the good bits. But when Ali was playing badly, people just saw it as, oh, he's young. But he's 23, 24 now. He's had 2 years nearly of bad performances, and Spurs are playing well without him. So why must he be in the squad?
Apparently, he refused to move to PSG. So maybe he's trying to
even if he'd gone,
find
I don't know why PSG have got a funny recruitment policy, man. Because that squad they put out yesterday was no better than the Everton team.
yeah.
Honestly, they had Danilo Pereira playing centre back. I don't understand, but Delhi is a luxury player for me. He's obviously got talent. He's obviously got ability. Obviously, he can score goals and win you games. But if you're winning games without him, why do you need to bring him in? I don't get the fuss over him not playing Dele Alli because they're winning. If it was them losing and he was still leaving him out, you'd be like, okay, well, he's a bit of a maverick, but he can pull results out of nowhere. But they're getting results without him. I really don't get the fuss. I really don't.
Yeah, look, put it this way. I think he's an exceptional talent. But again, I think his behavior off the field, and people are going to say to me, "Oh, what do you know about his behavior?" Well, I'm sorry, I'm not one of these people that gets excited about someone that's really good on social media or is famous for a wave. His behavior in the documentary, obviously, it wasn't anything ludicrous, but the whole banter thing, the whole pissing about, and while some people will say, "Yeah, it's good to have characters in the dressing room," sometimes you wonder, well, is that the focus? Is that what he's all about? And Chig, we've spoken in the past about Mesut Ozil or even Bellerin, but Bellerin has got his act together, hasn't he?
Yeah, listen, I can't. I'd be a hater if I said anything different. Last 5-6 games, Bellerin's really got his head down, he's working, he's doing basics. Didn't think he was amazing today, but I thought against Leicester, which was the game we lost, he was one of the few decent players that were out there and doing their thing. Mesut Ozil, if anything, has gone the other direction. He's making it a show about himself. Now, this is someone who is clearly tapped out on the club completely. But it's funny you should say that, actually. I thought you were going to mention Lingard as being your version.
He's disappeared off the face of the planet, thank goodness. So, honestly, look, I've never had, how can I put it? I've never had anything, any animosity towards these guys because they're living their best lives. Do you get what I'm saying? They're millionaire footballers playing at the highest level. So, I don't begrudge them that. But what I don't like seeing is when your team loses or when there's a really, really bad performance, they jump on social media and they'll either apologize or they'll do a stupid video or a dance routine or something ridiculous because it's like it's rubbing it in people's noses. And I think right now, Dele Alli's at a point where you look at that Spurs team, he's no longer an instant starter. There are players ahead of him like Ndombele, like Højbjerg, like even Lamela, Harry Winks. So he's fallen down the pecking order. Before you could say, yeah, it'll be Eriksen, Dele Alli, and possibly, I don't know, who else was there at the time?
It was those three behind Kane.
Yeah. But now you're looking at that squad, you're thinking, oh, hang about. You don't fit in this equation, my friend. So either you need to get your head down and start working or fuck off.
I personally, I don't have an issue with people being on social media doing dances and talking to fans and stuff like that. That doesn't bother me personally. I think Dele's problem is right now the team is winning without him, and when he comes in, he doesn't play well. I think that is the main gripe. I'm not sure what you're referring to when you talk about the documentary. I've seen it, but I can't quite remember. But
players will be on the treatment table, he'll be winding them up, or just little things. If you watch it, I mean, you might see little bits. Or maybe I'm just showing my age.
Again, stuff like that to me, that's the insides of a football club. I think people sometimes forget, especially with Dele. He's 23, 24. He's been at Spurs now for what, 4 or 5 years. So he's basically growing up at that football club. So a lot of these guys he will see as childhood friends. And as silly as that is, because he would have met them when he was 18, 19, he was a kid and he's grown up with these players. He's matured with these players. He's gone through whatever he's gone through in life before, outside of football. He would have gone through whatever he's gone through with these people around him. So I think stuff like that to me personally is an issue. I think what his problem is, like I said, is he's not performing on the pitch. And with Mourinho especially, Mourinho doesn't have any loyalty towards him. Poch would have had a loyalty towards him for bringing him through and the performances he had under Poch at the start. So Poch would have felt a way of trying to play him back into form. And I don't think Jose has that. I think Jose has said, look, you're not performing. I'm going to replace you. And then the players he's brought in are doing a job. So he's now just out of the way. A bit like Ndombele, where last season they started winning games and Ndombele wasn't in the team. So Ndombele didn't play. I think Ndombele got lucky in the sense that he then had the summer break and even the COVID break where the club wouldn't sell him and he had to work. And he did. And now he's in the team and now he's one of the first names on their team sheet. I think Ali's just got to play through it. And if it gets to January and it's still in the same situation, they look at it again. But when you look at the players that they have and even the players that you said are ahead of him in the pecking order, who does he get in ahead of? Lamela is your typical Jose winger. He's tenacious. He runs like a headless chicken and he can produce a moment of quality sometimes. He's not getting in ahead of Kane and Son. That's just bog standard.
He's not even getting ahead of Sissoko, mate.
Yeah, but Sissoko is your typical Jose central midfielder. I don't think I've ever seen a more Jose central midfielder than Sissoko other than Essien.
Wasn't he even a right winger at Newcastle?
He was a right back at one point. Like he just plays, but I think he suits. And even in the documentary that you saw Jose's face when they said how influential Sissoko was in the changing room. So I wouldn't be shocked if that plays a part in it as well. Højbjerg's come in and he's been phenomenal for them, bar the Everton game. He's been brilliant for them this season.
Lo Celso's been good. Lo Celso's been good.
Lo Celso's been good when he plays, but even he doesn't play as much as he did last season. But no one's talking about Lo Celso. And Lo Celso is better than Dele Alli.
Aren't they? They've got more options now.
Yeah, they've just got a deeper squad. The games are coming thick and fast, and Ali can't play himself into form. And I think the fact that he's English means it's getting more media attention, but people aren't talking about Lo Celso not playing, and he's better than Dele Alli. So I think he's just a victim of circumstance at this point. But again, until he earns a spot in the team, and I don't see any Tottenham fans complaining that he's not playing. I don't know a single Tottenham fan saying we should be playing Dele Alli. Yeah. So it's hard to argue with Jose about that point. Like last season when Ndombele wasn't playing, all you would see online and hear from fans was, why is he not playing Ndombele? You're not hearing that with Ali, and it's because his performances go back beyond him getting dropped by Jose. So I think that needs.
Do you think it's because he got too comfortable with his position, though? Do you think he got a little bit complacent?
I think it's partly that, but he also got figured out a bit. That ghosting into the box, people started realizing we can't let him do that. And technically, he's quite limited. He's not the best passer of the ball. He's not a great dribbler. He's not got explosive pace to go past players one-on-one. So when with Spurs getting better, teams start to defend more against them. So when you've got two banks of four in front of you, Dele Alli is not a threat as much as someone like Lo Celso or Bergwijn or Bale or Son. These players are more threatening than Dele Alli, so it makes sense for them to be playing ahead of him.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. All right, there's two more games that we can briefly talk about. First one happened on Friday evening. Wolves beat Crystal Palace 2-0. Wolves are up to 5th now, Chig. Quietly going about their business like a silent killer, like carbon monoxide, isn't it? Again, good result, solid display. Another Portuguese manager that's lighting up the Premier League. And yeah, it's Crystal Palace, bit of a good. Well, they had a good start to the season, but their form has dipped a little bit. I know Milivojevic, I finally got that one right, got sent off where the game was practically over. But in terms of a contest, I think Wolves did what they had to do, obviously, and they got the win. Bog standard performance, no?
Yeah, I think that, like you say, just going about their business. I'm finding that they probably are needing to reset a little bit because they've lost a few players over the summer. Doherty was one I didn't necessarily expect them to sell, and they did. They've lost a couple of players here and there, so they've almost had to readjust, and they're playing in a different way as well.
Vinagre ended up in Greece playing for the Mafia man. So yeah.
He's at Olympiacos, isn't
he? Yeah, for Mafianakis. But anyway, Karen, sorry.
So no, yeah. So I mean, I like Nuno a lot. I don't think they're necessarily the most entertaining of teams to watch. They're quite a functional team. That makes sense. So they're not necessarily a part of bus type, but they'll go about their business and they'll do that. I only say that because I actually watched that game against Palace. So I ain't gonna lie, I was bored. I was really bored. But for me, that doesn't necessarily put me off the manager. I wanted Nuno as the guy instead of Arteta. Actually, I was really, if it couldn't be Rafa, I wanted it to be Nuno. So he's someone I really like, and I think for me it's a matter of time before he goes to a big club. You see, I guess going back to that Southampton example, I suppose using Daniel's earlier kind of prediction, if Southampton could get to a Wolves sort of level and then move on in a way that I think Nuno will, I think I could see that potentially happening, where they may not necessarily achieve much, but they'll flirt with Europa League maybe, and then it'll be sooner or later a big club will pick him up. Because I think that will happen to Nuno. Eventually, a big club will take a chance on him, and maybe even and yes, I am going to include Everton as a big club because I think they have the infrastructure in place to be bigger than where they are now. So maybe as perhaps Carlo eventually fades out over there, I think he will maybe in the next 2 to 3 years. I could see Nuno going over there. Heck, I'm still hoping he comes to Arsenal, personally. So, so there you go.
Back to the Southampton thing. I think Nuno's in a similar spot in the sense of, I think that's his level. I think he's at a point now where the style of football that he plays and employs is accepted because the expectation isn't to win.
He's outperforming it. Yeah.
He's overachieving, but he's not overachieving. But he's also doing that thing that I was talking about that Hasenhüttl does, where whatever the squad he has he gets the most out of that squad. Like you said, they lost Jota and Doherty. They've brought in Semedo and they're using Podence and Neto, but they're still beating teams. They don't play an exciting, expansive style of football, but you're not getting easy points off Wolves. And I think that is, I would be shocked if a top 6 club took him, because because I think that what he plays is a style of football of let's not lose, and you can't do that at the top 6. You can't go into a top 6 season and say let's not lose. It has to be we're gonna win.
See, for me, he's so tactical. You're right, because I do think he has Wolves set up in that sort of shape. But I guess for me, I think with more quality and more with players with better ability around him, I do think he'd be able to develop an additional plan, if you like, to go on top of, right, we're difficult to beat, now what?
Potentially, but I think I can only go for obviously what we've seen.
What
we've seen so far is, even in the Championship, when they were comfortably the best team in the division, it was 3 at the back and we're not going to concede goals. They ended up scoring a ton because they were comfortably the best team in the division. When they came up, obviously it transcended well because they scored less, but they were still really hard to break down. Now that they brought in Jimenez and Traore's performing well, and they had Jota who performed well, they brought in Neves. Well, they had Neves already, but they brought in Moutinho. They've strengthened, and now they're harder to beat because they have better players, but they also have more quality. I can't imagine, for example, if he went to Arsenal, I can't imagine him getting Aubameyang and Saka to play the way he plays at Wolves, because it just wouldn't suit. I think the players that he has now suit the expectation of, if we play the big boys and we lose 2-1, that's a valiant effort. But you can't do that at Arsenal. If you're at Arsenal and you go to Chelsea and Arsenal put in a performance like Wolves do, it's a poor Arsenal performance. It's not a good performance.
Yeah.
Just so I think
expectations.
Yeah, I think the expectation level, and obviously he might go to Arsenal, start playing 4 up front and battering teams. But from what we've seen is he's very pragmatic, and it's all about, we do not lose this game.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, you can't do that at a top 6 team. And I think that's where Arteta is struggling at the moment. And I think that's why Lampard struggled, because Lampard went the other way and went, let's just beat everyone. And they conceded 70-something goals last season.
I guess I'm more prepared to trust that Nuno would have an additional plan than an inexperienced Arteta. I guess that's perhaps my whole thing with that. But yeah, you're right. Maybe not really thought that Nuno thing the whole way through.
I think bringing in Nuno or Arteta at that point where you did, it wouldn't have really made a difference. I think it's a gamble either way, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think Arsenal have gone with the fan pleasing appointment by bringing in a legend. So
I don't know about legend.
that's why I did that, because
Barely a great.
he was only there for 3 years.
Yeah.
But I think they've gone that route because obviously he's highly touted because of the Pep stuff, but he's also an ex-player, so he gets a bit of leeway. So I would not. I would be shocked if he went to a top 6 team and outperformed their expectations.
No.
Personally. But he's great. For Wolves, he's perfect.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, it's like you said, when you go to a bigger club, the level of expectation is higher. It's like, look at Real Madrid, for crying out loud. The amount of managers they've had over the years, and they've sacked managers, even though they've won trophies and European trophies, they've sacked them because they don't like their brand of football.
Yeah.
These things happen. This is why
That's
football
the
is so
level, man.
fucked up, man.
I read something about who's the old West Ham manager? What's his name? Was that City as well?
Pellegrini.
Pellegrini, and he said something about that they scored 102 goals and he got 92 points, but they didn't win the league, so he got sacked. You're like, what? 92 points before the last 2 seasons in the Premier League, wins the Premier League every year, and he got sacked because he didn't get 93 points. What? Like, the level is just astronomical, and especially in the Premier League where you got the top 6 and the rest. So in Spain, it's the top 2. It's not even the top; it's the top 2 in Spain. But they're so far ahead. Teams like Sevilla and Atletico Madrid, they're not so fussed because the gap is so huge here. Because it's 6 teams, the difference between finishing 7th and 10th is massive.
Yeah.
So if Nuno was to finish 10th or 11th this season, that Wolves are not happy because they finished 6th last year. They finished 7th the year before that. 11th is not progress to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but I can't see Nuno getting this Wolves team into 6th, or any other manager getting this Wolves team beyond 6th. It's just their level. That mid-table to Europa League spot, that's just where their players are, and that's the max they're getting. And I don't think that's a diss on them. It's just that's the way football is right now, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, you mentioned Pellegrini at Sete. They got a good win away from home against Sheffield United, but Sheffield United have been shit all season. I don't know what the fuck's happening to them at the moment. I think second season syndrome is literally here, isn't it? And I watched some of the game at the airport yesterday. I wasn't remotely entertained. It was just City going through the motions, trying to break them down, playing pretty football. Sheffield United chasing the ball, trying to hit them on the counter attack, as you'd fucking expect. City look completely toothless without any strikers, aren't they?
Yeah, they're struggling, man. They're struggling big time. I think
you're saying something there, Chig. You just
Well,
I saw your lips moving.
They do. They look surprisingly so. They look really, really inept of ideas. It was only because, quite frankly, their quality shined through. The Sheffield United thing, I'm going to pat myself on the back for, because when I did my season predictor, I picked them to go down. Really? I just had a feeling this would happen. Yeah, I had a feeling this would happen.
Me too. Because when they replaced Henderson with Ramsdale, I knew it was all over.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't talk to me about that goalkeeper, man. I just don't understand. I don't understand.
He might be worse than Pickford, you know. He might be worse than Pickford.
I think you're right.
But also, I just feel like their tactic of overlapping centre-backs, I think, is only going to work so often before they get figured out. And I always felt like it was going to be a situation where they were going to get figured out in the end. I like Wilder. It doesn't mean that he's a rubbish manager by any means, even if they do go down. But I just felt like they were innovative before when they came in, and then all of a sudden they started going on a little bad run towards the end of last season, if you remember. And then I thought to myself, I bet they go down. And it's looking like that's going to happen. So we'll see. It's still early. Maybe they can turn it around. But I'm not hopeful for them. Not in the moment.
Where do you think they need to strengthen then? Because they have spent this summer. They make no bones about it.
Yeah. 18 million on that rubbish goalkeeper, they've definitely spent. I just think they need to, I think with Sheffield United, they've always been seen as this gritty team that kind of play a slightly different way.
They've been sus. Then you're saying?
Yeah, but I think for me, they just need to just focus on playing just simple football. Don't overthink it. Be a Burnley if you like. I know that's not a great example because Burnley are rock bottom, but Burnley are previous seasons where they kind of kept it very simple. They knew who they were, and then target signings off the back of that. Like for me, I'm surprised they let Watkins go to Villa. I am shocked they let him go to Villa because for me, I thought that's the type of signing that you immediately go and get. You know, you go and beg someone like an Arsenal for their Rob Holdings. You go and beg an Arsenal for their Callum Chambers, even if it's on loan. Go and restore that kind of grit and then try and see if you can stay in this league. So it's difficult to say. I feel like they just need some fresh faces, generally. Because yes, they have spent, but I just don't think they've spent well enough in the positions that they need.
But Chig, I don't think it's helped that Lundstrom is fucking about over a contract, isn't he? Because even Wilder came out and absolutely blasted him. So you're thinking, well, he was a vital player for him last season. He still is a vital player, but
and he's a popular player in the dressing room.
This is it. So if he's refusing to sign a contract, then there must be something going on in the background. It can't be just a financial thing, because I don't think Sheffield United will have a problem paying Lundstrom however much he wants, even if he wants 25 or 30 grand. They've got the money, they've got the resources, as we've seen. So what's going on in the background?
It's a good question. It could be a thing whereby this might sound stupid, but you know, someone who's just coming up from the championship has gotten some praise, and maybe he's outpricing himself out of a new contract. We don't know. He seems like a player who, up until this point, has always seemed very committed to the cause. And then all of a sudden, this has happened, and they don't seem to have a way around it. And I actually think is now having a detrimental effect on the team. But then that's where I go back to my original point. Then if you have a player like that, make sure you can just move on from it in terms of whether it's replacing them with young players, replacing them with a new signing, finding a different way of playing, making them not so dependent on that player. Otherwise, he's going to torpedo their season.
I think they're also in a position where they massively overachieved last season. So anything this season looks like a failure. Like if you had said to me last season that Sheffield United were going to lose 5 out of 6 league games, I wouldn't have been surprised. And their squad this season hasn't changed much from their squad last season. So they've got a small squad. They've now got one of their best players isn't particularly happy to be there. Their new star striker is still trying to figure out the team. They've got a worse goalkeeper. And like you said, they've now been figured out for a year. It all just kind of culminates, I think. And then you've got games every 3 days, 4 days, even for them every once a week. But the fitness isn't there. They didn't have a preseason. They're coming off a bad end to last season. I think it's just a bit of. I think the international break that they're going to have this month is going to be huge for them. I think they need to really buck up. But I'm not particularly. When you look at their team on paper against anyone bar maybe Fulham and West Brom, I don't expect them to beat teams, personally. So
you reckon the bottom 3 will be Fulham, West Brom, and Sheffield United? Then is that what we're going with?
I made a prediction earlier in the season, at the start of the season. I can't remember what I picked. I think I definitely said West Brom and Fulham, 100%, because they're terrible. I think Sheffield United will survive, but they'll be there. They'll be in and around it. Their squad's just not strong. It's just not a strong squad. And eventually, this is what we were saying earlier. It's just they overachieved last season. But if I guarantee, if you found a Sheffield United fan and you said we're going to give you a 17th place finish this season, do you take it? They'll say yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So just because they were in the Champions League chat until April or June last season.
But do you know what I don't like is that certain people are still pointing to that VAR incident at Villa Park. That was a long time ago now. That's old news. That was last season. You can't keep bringing that up and saying, "Oh well, if that ball crossed the line, if they gave the goal, then their season would have been different." You never know, because
No, you don't know.
I know they lost to Newcastle the week after, but didn't they win the game after that? So it didn't have that much of an effect.
I know they've only won once since lockdown.
That's probably the game.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they've got I think it's 4 or 5 points from their last 12 games or something. They've been awful since lockdown, but it's just one of especially at that point in the season, you had the big teams knew what they had to do at that point. The momentum went out the window because you had a 3-month gap. And then it was just about quality on the pitch because there's no fans. And like I said, they don't have a lot of quality on the pitches. Their system was their big, a lot like Wolves, their system is their big thing. And Wolves have managed to strengthen their squad to a point where the system still works. Leicester, they did it with Rodgers. And now this season, you're seeing Leicester aren't as good as they were last season because the quality of player has dropped. Yeah. I think that you got United who've brought in players, but the system is crap. You've got Newcastle who have strengthened in midfield, and now they're winning games instead of drawing games. So I think Everton as well, they've brought in 3 midfielders, and now they're up there at the top of the league. So I think the window had a big effect, but also just the systems that these teams are now playing is a big difference. And Sheffield United haven't changed anything.
Yeah. Well, they're playing to their strengths, though, weren't they, last season? They're playing to their strengths, but that can only get you so far.
But they also rode their luck a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of those games that they drew, they should have probably lost. A lot of the games they won, they probably should have drawn. And the ones that they lost, they probably should have lost by more.
Mm.
So that's not to say they didn't play well, but even again, I'm going back to United, but the 3-3 draw, once it came back to 3-2, they should never have been able to get a point out of that game.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they had, I think it was it against Arsenal as well? They got a late equaliser or a late winner at one point.
Against Arsenal, actually, yeah. Bramall Lane, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it seems that they did a lot of it, and that's a credit to them that they're in the game at that point. But it only lasts so long. And I think now, like I said, the lack of quality that the team has, the system can only get you so far when the quality is poor. They're missing one of their centre-backs is out for the season, isn't he? He's got an ACL injury.
Mm.
You've got a worse goalkeeper now. Your best midfielder doesn't want to be there. That's your whole spine gone straight away. So it's a big problem that Wilder needs to get on. I just hope they don't get rid of Wilder for out of nowhere, because I think that would be super harsh.
Well, which other manager can they bring in? Unless they go.
I think that squad that is his squad. If anyone's going to do anything with that squad, it's him.
Yeah, very true.
If they're going to go down, they're going to go down with or without him. I think.
Yeah. Spot on. Right, gents, that's it for another episode. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for jumping on. Before I let you guys go, Twitter handles and all that other stuff. Chig?
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter at Colossal Chig. Follow me on Insta at Gooner _Eagle _Eye. Those are my 2 main handles. So do give me a follow on there. I'd usually post shows and where I'm going to do shows and when I'm going to do shows on at least one of those platforms. So, yeah, you catch me on there.
Superb. And Dan, Mr. 90-minute football, right? Look at that.
Yeah, man. Started there this week. So
congratulations.
Cheers. Appreciate it.
How you finding it?
Yeah, it's all right. It's good. Okay. I won't talk too much. I've only had only 2 days there, but yeah, it's going well. It's good.
Excellent.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at DMFV2. Follow my website as well, tap ins and tap outs, everything football and MMA. Go for it.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, we're on Twitter at Shoot Defense. Don't really use it that much. We're on Instagram, Shoot Defense. Don't use it that much either. Shows how little shit I give about social media these days. So that's it for another episode. We'll be back very soon. I think we've got a couple of Ukrainian football special shows coming up. So yeah, until next time, ladies and gents, ta-da.